This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road, Jack, Finding the Zodiac. I would like to welcome Harriet Suchet to the show this morning.
Yes, very good morning and happy Friday the 13th.
Oh, it is. That's right. Okay, so we have some great Friday the 13th news for you today. It might even almost sound like we meant this, but whole lot going on in the Zodiac realm these days. I'm finding things. Harriet's finding things. I'm extremely excited to share all of this with you guys this morning. I had a couple people reach out to me this last week, one on YouTube and one on the radio website that we have through this particular podcast. And I'm going to start actually with David Villa. I was contacted by him back when I initially started the podcast. He is with San Joaquin Valley Transparency. He is the Record Police Now type person. And I just want to give him a shout out because he's out there looking out for the protection of the public while reminding the cops what their job is and how to do it the right way. I think it's great. I spoke with him for about 3 hours on the phone yesterday after he had sent a message that said, been following you for years. A couple years ago, I was happy to see you post the documentary with Dennis Kaufman. My YouTube channel took off. He completely believes in government accountability, I believe is what the sentence was supposed to say. And he just wanted to say that I've brought the most compelling evidence of anyone that he has seen in the Zodiac case. And that's a huge shout out because this is what I've been trying to tell people for oh so long. All these other suspects that are out there don't seem to have quite the amount of evidence that would support that they were capable or had the experience necessary to pull off what was going on in the Zodiac killer cases. I know that I talked with you, Harriet, a little bit yesterday about David and some of the things that he thought he could do to help boost the channel. When I first came out with the podcast, he literally sent dozens of people from his own channel to come and check out the podcast, which I thought was fabulous because he initially helped me to start building that subscriber list. I really appreciate it, David, and I look forward to working with you. And I do believe that accountability and transparency is really what we're all looking for as a society. The next person who reached out to me, he has Ed Edwards ciphers. Now, one of the questions, well, we'll get to that. Hold on, Harriet. I know you're going to have all kinds of words because as I'm looking at these particular YouTube messages, I receive a solve from Harriet, and you actually mention Ed Edwards. Now, I don't want to get into the solve just yet, but you do believe that he's involved with this group, correct?
He's not involved with Jack's side. Jack and his crew are calling him the shitty side.
Okay. I guess I just saw the name and went, what the heck is going on today? I've said this many times. I'm busy doing my research. Harriet's busy doing her solves. And we come together once a week to say, hey, what do you got? What am I going to add into the podcast? And it's been several times that we've actually stumbled across the same information.
Yeah, very kismet. That's what they call it.
Pretty much. I think I even used that word yesterday. So Ed Edwards Cipher says on YouTube, curious about what information you have on Tim Miller and those letters he received. I'd be interested to see if you have more content on that. I never knew you had a YouTube channel. Congratulations on it. And then a Linda SN Mac B also said, same, as I was curious about this as well. We are going to climb into the Tim Miller letters. In the very beginning of the podcast, I'd started with them to show one of the types of samples that we'd be looking at, which was these cutout letters using magazines and newspapers. Now, you have not done a solve on Tim Miller yet, correct?
Oh, yes, I have. I've done a huge one. That's how come I could say, in a weird way, they're actually tiny bit correct, because that style that Jack used is also used in parts of the Ghost Killer letter.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Well, so I responded to him and I let him know that, yes, I have had interactions with Tim Miller. He's come out here and visited Dennis and I. Dennis went back and visited him in Texas. And then he sent his private investigator out at some point. And I did do an examination on the handwriting of the suspect. He believed that it was. He also took a civil lawsuit out against the man. I think he was awarded something like $14 million, which might have made him felt pretty good at the time, though I highly doubt he's ever going to be able to collect a dime of it. He did ultimately call me about a month after I started the podcast to ask me once again whether or not I still believe that Jack Terrence was the Zodiac, which I then affirmed, and I still have not been able to get him back on the phone since. But I'm hoping by the time we get to 2006, and even 1984, when we begin talking about the death of his daughter, Laura Miller, I know that, Harriet, you have a lot of information on that from the solves that you believe that has worked out of messages, and we'll be talking about that as well. He said he wasn't familiar with the terms at all, because I asked him, do you have handwriting on Ed Edwards? He said, I'm afraid I don't have a strong background in law enforcement. I suspect Edwards in several crimes, but I don't suspect him because of handwriting directly. I look for ciphers. Well, ciphers are handwritten, so I was really kind of confused about that. I would be interested in taking a look at his handwriting and comparing them. He says, of which I've found several, hence the name. I believe someone who was familiar with the Zodiac wrote letters to Tim Miller and left ciphers in both letters that were sent to him. Yes. If that's what you're asking. Apologies if I did not understand directly what you were asking. Now, we first need to understand that Tim Miller only received one letter. I did receive two versions of it from somebody who slid into my emails and slid back out after he dropped them off. The FBI did attempt to trace this individual, and we are no longer seeing these images online anymore. When I spoke with Tim Miller about it, all he had received was the cutout version. It looks like somebody then turned around and traced that cutout version with handwriting, and that was the second version that I saw. But since I cannot source it, even though we know that the Zodiac would at times write 2 and 3 versions of the same exact letter, and we're going to get into one of those today, I have no source or knowledge that that particular handwritten version was done by the Zodiac. So he went on to say sorry, I didn't understand what you meant by this in your other post. I read that first one. I have no work that corroborates Edwards' connection to that case. And I'm thinking he's talking about Tim Miller's. He says, I believe Detective John Cameron made that claim. Do you know who John Cameron is, Harriet?
No, but the name sounds familiar. When you do what I do, I read really quick and gloss over names. So
right.
Yeah.
He says it sounds
the point on other things.
Right. He says it sounds good and adds to the lore of confusion around Edwards, depending on how one looks at it. I do not have any detection of a cipher in that case or cases if one exists. Perhaps there is. I do not know. Always a good thing when progress is made on cases. Let's keep our fingers crossed. So I will be taking a look at the solve. I'm not sure if you've already sent that to me on Tim Miller's letter or not, but I will take a look at it. And I told him that I would maybe even possibly put you two in contact with each other, because he's obviously chasing this cipher scheme as well. And I don't know if that means he knows how to do ciphers, but maybe you guys can kind of cohorts in crime in the cipher area. So we're going to...
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I said, we shall see. This is every time I do a cipher, or you'd send me a request, and I'm like, I didn't do this one before. It takes off into another direction, but it always circles back to Jack and his crew.
And that's what I'm seeing. It's interesting to note that, again, each time a solve is made in one of these communications, that it is perfectly fitting with the time frame, either the politics or the mob or whatever's going on at that time, or maybe even the prediction factor that the FBI talks about that is going to lead us to the next crime that's going to be committed by this group. Now, before we get into anything else, I want to always talk about freedom of speech, and I'm going to do a rant here in a second, but I kind of want to give you guys some background on why this rant didn't go off last week. YouTube is obviously their AI or whomever it is deciding what words that we can use in our podcast, and albeit I use all the words. Lucky enough to not have caused one of those strikes, but I'm going to do my best to kind of steer away from words, find other words, like they said, that you can use that won't set off AI or cause any issues. I mean, even with Facebook this last week, they threw up a memory. This is my 3-year anniversary, basically. About 3 days ago is when I started this podcast 3 years ago. And Facebook threw up a now and then memory. So I went ahead and I posted this new statement from David Villa next to the very first episode that was played on the podcast. And I sent it up as a short story. And of course, I was immediately blocked by Facebook. They told me I was violating community standards by attempting to send people to other places for clicks. And the audacity of these people, because they're the ones that sent me the now and then.
Yeah.
If you didn't want me to post it now and then, why would you send it to me? And that's not unlike other areas where I've reposted something that had come across my Facebook from my Facebook page that people had sent, and I reposted it and then got a warning once again that I was violating some community standards, which again isn't the person who initially posted it the person who's violating. I just giggled, laughed, and hit repost. Again,
it looks like
not
they're fishing for a or get you. Jeez.
Sometimes that's how I feel. I mean, it's like the one time I got or not a strike necessarily, but the warning from YouTube in regards to mentioning the word suicide on my show. And it turned out it was 25 seconds in. It was Dean the Pipe Man's disclosure for my podcast. And he hadn't even mentioned any of those words, nor was I even speaking. So to get that warning was a little bit off-putting. So here we go. And we're going to do our best not to get ourselves banned from YouTube. But my rant was actually based on dealing with a lot of my Democratic friends over my vacation in Ireland and the disbelief that their choices in politics don't stink. I at least admit my options or choices do. We just saw Biden become that political figure the Dems despise in the reps while despising the new president. At the same time, he swore he wasn't going to pardon his son, but he did, in fact, all the way back to 2014, which what has this kid been up to that he needs a pardon back 10 years? Are you familiar with anything he's done, Harriet?
Yeah, well, but there's a quick take on him. Okay, now they're used to seeing the headlines, Biden did this and this was wrong. He actually pardoned, and I'll say it really quick, a Chinese Communist national. But if you read the rest, it's to kick him out of the country. He commuted his sentence, and to kick him out of the country and everything that he owns here, he's to relinquish all his rights. So I said, I can't believe that I had to stand up for that one. That's a good thing that he did that. But the others, wow, it's bad.
It's just an abuse of power. I mean, why are you pardoning your son? Your son obviously he's never going to straighten up and become the man you want him to be unless he faces, the music. So, and with a running mate like Kamala Harris, the biggest thing I heard from the Republicans on the trip is that they felt Kamala Harris was fake. So many of the Irelanders, that's not even a correct word, the Irish, felt that Kamala was fake. And I can understand that. I giggle a lot. I appreciate a good giggle. But I mean, I think that Hillary Clinton was the best with that stone-faced bitch look on the constant. She did giggle every now and again, but nothing like the giggling that we see going on by Kamala. I told those that I cared to share my political feelings with that politics have their own agenda, and we are not on that list. It's unclear and purposefully confusing written measures that actually cause people to vote in the opposite of their intentions. Everyone should clearly understand the measures without confusion. No one needs to spend a single dollar on bashing another opponent in a race rather than spending those dollars on proving to the U.S. citizens that they have our interests at heart because we make this world go round. Let's talk about the pardons, which include within the party I vote for. Disclosure, we don't always care for the person that's representing the party, but we care for what the party represents, like protecting ourselves against government and controls of dictatorships, maintaining our constitutional rights to freedom of speech and the right to bear arms. Biden pardons his son after saying he won't, and that his son deserves I think his son deserves what he has coming to him. And would any of us be pardoned for this, doing the same thing in the White House? I think not. It's an abuse of power. Bush pardons the only person under indictment in the Iran-Contra affair that would have certainly implicated him. So he literally pardoned himself. Again, abuse of power. Bush, this kind of reminds me of.
I was going to say, keep going. Yes, they're both sides have their issues.
Both sides have their issues. And when I think about Trump being reelected into presidency, was this all not just so that he could then turn around and pardon himself at the end of this 4 years, squashing all of the issues that have come about with his term of presidency and his attempts to run for presidency? And again, believing that all these people are in cahoots. So it's just being, everything's being thrown out there. They basically weaponized the DOJ against him, and now they're going to give him an opportunity to pardon himself from that. That's really what I see happening for the end of the 4 years with Trump. And I'm still confused. Sorry, guys, but I'm still confused about having a president that has been convicted of crimes, if this is factually true. Bush also pardons Henry Lee Lucas, which you're going to see. We will do a segment on this, in cahoots with the Texas Rangers, who tries to falsely close more than 200 murders around the U.S. that I believe can be tied back to those in charge, as I want to call it. Bush was in Texas when JFK is assassinated, and part of the Bay of Pigs involving Cuba. That's just one of the some of the ones that I cover in the Zodiac cases. The part with Henry Lee Lucas is that this man could not have had the information necessary to have admitted to these crimes. He was clearly given or fed that information by the Texas Rangers. And when Bush turns around and pardons him, how is it that Henry Lee Lucas, if he admits to all of these murders, is eventually pardoned in the end? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Is this another one of those Texas cover-ups where they were looking to close all these unsolved murders that we are hopping around right now with the Zodiac cases that we believe that are politically affiliated, or, an assassination, as Harriet has said in her solves? Hillary Clinton starts her life as an attorney as a Republican during the Watergate scandal, but becomes a Democrat at some point and has her own agenda after her husband is caught in an illicit affair with a staffer in the Oval Office. Today, someone brings up that Obama is responsible for, and I say today, but this again was a week and a half ago, responsible for more deaths with his drone strikes than anyone. And I've seen pictures of him eating pizza with Epstein, the child trafficker for royalty and the elite, in cahoots with Gazelle, the daughter of the Folgers coffee empire, whose father supposedly falls off his yacht to never be seen again. By the way, Epstein committed, I was trying to find a new word for this, committed self-homicide. He committed self-homicide in his jail, while info says that Clintons have had over 100 self-homicides surrounding them during their time in politics, with the IRS, the DOJ, and media influences as their personal attack dogs. I strongly suggest we don't forget the past and never fight, separate from, or argue with our own friends for any person vying for power, but decide what it is that we want as Americans. Stop letting politicians lie to us and join together to decide our future. Today, I saw justice fail. Again, this was a week and a half ago, and this has resurfaced all the research that I've done over the years. We need to remember to not forget what has caused us to be where we are at in society today. And by the way, healthcare is not free in other countries. And of the two I just visited, they are just as dysfunctional, if not more, than the U.S., and severely divided on a level I can't comprehend when their diversity is so limited in comparison to the U.S. I'm proud to be an American. The sixth thing I heard from people who have dual citizenship that would never return to or live in the U.S. that actually have the right to vote for our president and pretended they have a say-so in who and how we are ran in this country. makes me sick to my stomach because Hillary Clinton wanted to be president and was said to, on many occasions, not liked Americans. What are we doing, people? My rant is pretty much ended at this point. You're welcome to weigh in. Hit me up. Email me at findingthezodiac@gmail.com if you'd like. But I'm just watching this over the many years of research in the Zodiac case and getting to see and know what it is that, or I'm sorry, how these presidents have behaved, how these politicians have behaved over the last 100 years or so. Is there anything you would like to add to that rant?
Oh, I'm just saying that I'm seeing over through my side what I do. There's versions of you break it, you bought it. So 20 years earlier, if you're involved with breaking something that you weren't sure was exactly the right thing, a whole bunch of crap going on, and then 20 years later, you get into the White House, it's because you bought that and you got to circle back, and then you have to fix everything and fire people and get them thrown under the bus. That's what I'm seeing. So it looks like Trump is going to be throwing a lot of people under the bus, and they probably deserved a lot of it. So that's
right.
What's going on currently right now. The past is catching up, and all these people verbally saying they drained the swamp by Biden actually pardoning his son, because all those people got exposed. All these good. Talking heads.
Hi, Nolan. Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning,
I was having
Nolan.
technical difficulties.
I dislike technical difficulties.
Yeah. And there was a story online about the reopening of the John Benet Ramsey investigation using DNA and other new modern crime techniques to check into it.
They've had the DNA for how long? If it didn't match somebody in their database back then, they think they're going to find that match now. It'll be interesting to see what they have that comes about. And I've often thought that because this was a lot of people in collusion with taking John Ramsey down for selling bad or outdated hardware or software to Lockheed, that we wouldn't find that the handwriting would match the person that the DNA matched. We wouldn't find that the fingerprints match the DNA or the handwriting. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. And I did just finish watching the new John Benet Ramsey docuseries, and it was just a pitiful shame what law enforcement and the media had done to John Ramsey. What's that? Nothing?
The Netflix series?
Yes. So they knew in less than 30 days that the DNA did not match the family, but they withheld that information for 11 months. They allowed the media to grill and vilify the family, and they continued the onslaught for many, many years, including one of the investigators having written a book on it and then being sued by the Ramseys for the slander that he exposed or that he stated in that book. So let's get back to other dirty things. I want to go back to and talk about the April 24th, 1978, In Control of All Things, Herb Cain letter that was stated to have been a forgery. In fact, one of the FBI FOIA files lists the letters that they believed that are connected to the Zodiac, and it specifically states on there that it is not a known authentic letter. I have failed to climb back into my binders where I have previous research from 2009 through 2013. And yesterday I happened to start looking through them in this era, and I came across an intel. It's a report of the Federal Bureau of Investigation from Washington, D.C. on June 7th of 1978. It gives a list of communications that were provided, and they were requested of the handwriting examiners to do an examination of all of these letters to determine whether or not they were written by the same hand. And of course, this goes on down on the right-hand side. We can see that they've got a majority of these are the known Zodiac letters. But when I got to the last page is where I got extremely interested, because we see here Q99 listed. My There it is. Q99 is listed, a one-page letter and envelope postmarked 24 April 1978, which is that they said your item number 15. So they're calling item number 15 San Francisco Police Department's. But obviously the FBI has a continuation of these question documents in their files, and they're up to Q99 and QC100. And QC100 is photographs of 3 letters and envelopes postmarked April 30th, 1967. Oh, so this is going to be the Sherry Joe Bates stuff, the Riverside letters. So now I want you to keep in mind, while we've been seeing people trying to bifurcate the cases between Zodiac and Sherry Joe Bates, we've seen them tell us that this April 24th letter is a forgery or a fraud by Toshi, which he clearly states he did not write. And this is what the results were from that in the FOIA file. Specimen received May 18th, 1978 from FBI, San Francisco, under cover of communication dated May 15th, 1978. I'm still trying to figure out what this particular letter is, because this specimen, and it may be somebody to, this specimen, I'm not sure what they're referring to as a letter is May 15th, 1978. Do you know what they're talking about, Harriet?
No, but maybe that would be an interesting portion for me to see, because that might be old code too. Some of this stuff that in the FBI files is code.
I wonder if it's the second Herb Cain letter, because that one I do not have a date on, and we're going to get ready to climb into that. But this is the results of the examination. The handprinting on the Q85 through QC100 letters shows a wide range of variation in various writing speeds. Additionally, portions of the material, particularly the 3 Riverside letters, may have been disguised or deliberately distorted. Hello, duh. I'm glad they picked up on that, because people don't write in that manner. And you can ultimately see in these letters when you're going through it when the person drops a true letter form, because it's smoothly written. It's written nicely without any distortion in the line quality. So you know that letter is, and it also appears to have been written with fluidity and speed, because nobody writes absolutely copybook perfect like we saw in the Zodiac's Belli letter. And nobody writes with all of these wiggles on downstrokes. It's just, I mean, unless you're suffering from some neurological disease, which would put you off into your, 60s, 70s, and 80s at the time these letters were written, and it would be highly unlikely you were out there committing murders in that case. But they go on to say, for the above reasons, the handprinting examination of these letters was inconclusive. This is what they told me as well, which is really kind of, we'll get there. However, consistent handprinting characteristics were noted in the Q85 through QC100 letters, which indicate that one person may have prepared all of the letters, including the Riverside letters and the messages found on the desktop in the Riverside cases. The submitted evidence was photographed and is enclosed herewith. One of the things this tells me is that these are the original documents, because they photographed them. Be no reason to photograph it. If it was a copy, you would just slide that into the file and move about your day. So at least as of 1978, we know that all of these letters were still in the possession of law enforcement before they randomly come up missing and get dispersed over the years. So with that being said, they are stating that this is consistent with the characteristics found in the Zodiac writings. The Riverside letters in Sherry Joe Bates, again, consistent in characteristics. And I like how they may have prepared all of the letters, including the Riverside letters. So this may have. This is what they said. Purportedly, and you guys can all clearly see that this particular communication from the FOIA files was 3 pages long. I received a 1-page, and the second page had merely a small paragraph on it, in which case they stated also the handwriting comparison between Jack and the Zodiac letters was inconclusive due to them not having the original Zodiac letters. I think that's complete BS. Ooh. Either way, they went on to say that he may or may not have altered the letters. I was like, may or may not have. Like, you're at 2 different ends of the spectrum when you think about a qualified opinion as a document examiner. We start at the top with identification. The bottom is an exclusion. Somewhere in the middle is inconclusive. And then outside of that, you get varying degrees of probable, strong probability, and then probably not, and strong probability not. So while they claimed it was an inconclusive result, they went ahead and used 2 qualified levels, one from above and one from below, inconclusive to state that he may or may not have written the letters. Oy my vey, I'm so confused. I don't know how they make any identifications in anything if that's the way they speak in regards to handwriting.
Yeah.
So, so that brings us to the crack-proof letter. The date is unknown, and I have it listed in here as 7/11/1978, but now I'm starting to wonder about this May date. I don't know where I got July 11th, 1978 for the crack-proof letter. Let's see.
So they're all the same April 1978. They're all together.
Okay.
But they're all in sections. That's why I said I beat myself up because I mixed the crack proof and the other printed one together, and I had to redo that. But they're all together. Then this is sent as a giant facsimile. So there's 6 portions, and they all flow very fluidly, including the ghost killer. So,
okay. So we're going to step into that.
Read it?
No, we're not there yet.
To read it and then,
no,
okay, go for it.
I'm not there yet. I'm still at the point of introducing the letter. So basically, this is a secondary letter that is written about Herb Caen. It says, "Dear editor, the Zodiac speaking. I am crack proof. Tell Herb Caen that I am still here. I have always been here. Tell the Blue Pigs if want me, I will be out driving around on Halloween in my death machine, looking for some kitties to run over. Cars make nice weapons. The pigs can catch me if they can find me out there, just like in the movie The Car. Tell the kitties, watch before they cross the street on Halloween night. Tell Tashi plans, yours truly." And it's again the Zodiac symbol next to the word guess, as if to guess how many victims he's had at this point. And it is signed off VPD, which is Vallejo Police Department, and they also are labeled with 0. So we know he said that about the SFPD. Now we're seeing the VPD is also tallied at 0. Very close statement that is made in the original Herb Caen letter that they tried to declare was a fraud. He talks about being crack proof, that he's still here. He's always been here, which you've been in and out of the state, Jack. He talks about the Blue Pigs. Catch me if they can find me. There's the movie reference that we see in so many of these communications, the movie The Car. He signs off yours truly, and this is equal to the Sherry Jo Bates confession letter and the Dear Draft Board letters and others. So letter was called a hoax by local authorities in the control of all things. Now I'm wondering what they have to say about this other, but we've looked at the handwriting and we can tell that it is definitely something that the Zodiac has executed.
It looks legit to me. I don't know why they tried and say it was fake.
Well, they tried to say this one over here to the right was fake and that this was a hoax letter. I haven't really gotten a lot of information. Again, I believe that lots of things have been taken down from the internet, which is why I'm going to start going back through my binders, because I collected and printed everything from the internet, including the URLs that existed back in 2009 through 2013. And we're going to see how things differ. I mean, obviously, we just saw one FOIA file from the FBI that states that it was a hoax letter, but the other one says that the handwriting is consistent with a single author. Go ahead. Noel.
Yes. On the last slide, the envelope looks like Zodiac handwriting, but the letter itself is not as similar. But it still could be. But the Chronicle and blah, 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 San Francisco, California, that looks like Zodiac.
You have to do kind of a comparison of this one to the Melvin Belli letter, where he strictly attempted to do copybook printing, which is very disguised handwriting because nobody writes that slow. So it's very consistent with the Belli letter, and I've shown how it's consistent with other letters throughout the Zodiac communications.
It seems just like tighter and neater.
What's that?
So to me, at first glance.
Right, and we have
the body of the letter seems tighter and neater.
Well, neater is that Melvin Belli letter. So Melvin Belli is one of those strict, but as he goes down the end of the letter, he starts to fall apart in his neatness and perfection of the copybook script, and we start to see him drop his own characteristics in the handwriting. So that brings us to the stenographic code. I am crack proof, the Car movie. Harriet, do you want to read that solve?
That one was easy to do once I wasn't mixed up. Anyways, it says, to the sloppy ace detective Toshi, the Irishman is to bludgeon the shitty screen actor chef Gus Starr, who bugged District of Columbia Commander-in-Chief Carter to paint Scottsdale, AZ, Arizona, wall sideways with Bob Crane head blood. Wow. And we were just talking about Bob Crane.
Yes. Yes. In fact, that was one of my statements, is that you seem to have solves that are consistent with the information either before or after as it's coming up. And you believe all of these were a facsimile that was written in 1978?
Exactly. They're all, according to what I got, it's April 29th and April 30th, 1978. So it's mainly April 30th, 1978. Series of messages that were all put in together. Wow. Okay. I'm ready for the control of all things one, too.
I know. I'm coming up to that one right now. So you had sent me, hello, Nanette, here's another part to the April 1978 series. The 1978 editor of both the San Francisco Chronicle and the Santa Clarita Signal was Scott Newhall. Santa Clarita and Town Newhall is old Hollywood lands that Newhall family owned and are still well connected to Disney movies, where Disney movies are filmed, and there's still Bob Crane Gus was filmed in parts of that area. You circled the stenographic code, so everybody is seeing that on my screen right now, was found in this version. You added City Pig Toshi's full name, his police department, etc., and then you anagrammed it. So you want to go ahead and read that message.
Yeah, it is a second part to the flow. Hogan's Heroes, Bob Crane must die. Piece of shit. Ed Edwards of TVs to tell the truth with little Q-word. I don't think we can say that on YouTube now. Cyan Boy Tao, UHF at Kid Wayne Williams bugged the Carter Plains, Georgia home phone line and Bob Crane's Scottsdale, AZ, Arizona city phone line in his apartment. Hone in on the President Carter half value layer, which is radiation exposure. He was licking the stamp. So that's
was a radiation exposure through the stamp.
Carter and Terrence both suffered from radiation exposure. So licking that stamp, it looks like he was trying to record this according to the code that Carter's recording what he's doing, and it's using a phone line, very rare for most people, and his saliva is supposed to be still radioactive at that time. So and there's a mission going on. They're going after the Nazis, and Carter was picked for that team. And then to make it more short to the point, Hogan's Heroes, his co-stars were actual Nazi victims, Holocaust survivors, either themselves or their family members. So
wow.
There's a
now
lot
you
going
mentioned
on. Yeah.
You mentioned Ed Edwards of TVs to Tell the Truth. So that was an actual series or something?
I remember seeing him in the 70s doing some shows, but he was big he did a show on To Tell the Truth and was coming forward saying, I used to be a criminal. And, it was a big deal. So he was.
So Ed Edwards being
connected. Sorry.
That's okay. So Ed Edwards is the same Ed Edwards ciphers gentleman that I'm talking to right now, who believes that Ed Edwards also did ciphers.
He's somehow in this mess, but he's not on Jack and his crew's side. They are not liking him for what he did and who he got involved with.
So
and Wayne Williams was trying to get into the TV and radio action. He even, as a kid, from what I read, basically was trying to get kids into shows and, starring whatever.
So he was doing interviews. He was doing interviews with the likes of people like Bob Crane and other celebrities, politicians.
He was involved in something and for those who claim that Wayne Williams, even though I'm not liking what I see, has an IQ of 118, think again. It's a lot higher. When you're 12 years old, interviewing people connected to civil rights leaders and understanding everything, come on. And in your home radio program, oh, big deal.
Yes, I did read that. And Wayne Williams, it was one of the suspects in the Atlanta, Georgia child killer cases, correct?
Well, yeah, he was the patsy.
Yes.
He gets convicted of a couple of the crimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that they were adults, right?
No, children.
Yeah, he gets convicted as
No. I know who was killed in Atlanta, Georgia child killer cases, but Wayne Williams was actually convicted of having, I thought, killed an adult, not children.
Not that I know.
He's two adults, but they all these people that were kids. It's a mess. It's horrible.
Well, they tried to pin the kids on him, but what they did have evidence, I thought, was something to do with adults, not with children. So either way, all right, we'll get to him when we get to him, because he will be a part of. He's a patsy like Arthur Lee Allen for whatever purpose. I'm not saying he wasn't a bad guy and didn't do his own business, but I don't think that he was the person that was responsible for all the killing of the children in Atlanta. Let's see. Now this is moving on to the envelope, I believe. You said it's top secret, Jack, Nixon, Hearst, Zodiac, Carter, until both Terrence and Carter die. Jimmy Carter is still alive. Jimmy Carter is still alive. How old would this man have to be right now?
He's 100 million. He's 100.
He's about 100. Yeah.
Wow. And for somebody suffering from
No, I was just going to say that the envelope, the solvent itself actually splits in half, and then you add the others, and it's all fluid. But yeah, if you want me to read that, Saul.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. This was easy to do. It's April 30th, 1978. Signal and Chronicle editor Scott Newhall, even though it says just a Newhall, that guy was doing both papers. Anyways, at zip code 91355, facsimile, and he's saying a different version of To Tell the Truth, his Portuguese, To Tell the Truth, sheer horizon, atomic mass, Z dash, and then a pause, atomic number. I think he was trying to explain something that most people are not going to understand what he was exposed to. So it comes out perfect. Anyways, official president-elect him sent one secret witness, OCCK, 122976, writing to the Royal Oak Police Department, Michigan, zip code 48201, with info, nomen nescio, that's Jack, is ill, and then it has the HVL, the half value layer saliva on or about back of USPS image, Liberty Bell 13-cent stamps, US Scott 1595. And then it goes on to say, nomen nescio, that's Jack, is temporarily blind, do need doc's operation. P.S. Also, for what it's worth, should nomen nescio and I die, I request local San Francisco, California Chronicle run the 94103 scoop. The current president, 1 R.A. Hearst, Richard Nixon, 2, New Terrence with Zodiac. You make sure you ask His Holiness, the 999 Pope Paul, says one mass, I.O., that's documents in order, Commander-in-Chief Carter.
So is that a sign-off because Carter wrote this, or this is...
Yeah, Carter, it's both Jack and Carter are doing these. So the other bottom part goes after the ghost killer. Because the ghost killer says the same thing. They got and that Jack is on a leave of absence. That's what's in the ghost killer.
Now this blind thing, the blind thing that you're talking about, he's having problems with his eyes, and you mentioned that he has been exposed to radiation. We know that Jack worked for General Electric in the San Jose or the Bay Area, where he developed the machinery that strips water waste from the actual, it removes water from the nuclear waste. So he could potentially have been exposed at that point to radiation, correct?
Yes, for a long term. But I'm wondering, and is there any information we can come up with? Because the Fermi plant in Michigan had a similar mishap to which Carter was the one who in 1952 jumped down the silo to turn some things to stop the leak. So I would logically be calling somebody who knew how to do something, and that would be Jack. And to get this, the radiator for the Fermi plant had the problem. Jack tells Dennis, I damaged my hands on a radiator. So is there any way that we can...
Do you know when that happened? When Carter had to jump down for that?
Huh? 1952, Carter jumps down a silo and turns some things because there's fallout and a bad accident happening. In 1966, the Fermi plant had something similar, and that's in Michigan. And it was the radiator thing for their wastewater. So did Jack go in there and turn that radiator?
Well, and we have three references to power plants with Jack. Number one was in Chicago, Illinois. We see that he is there while they're building the stacks to that particular power plant. We know that he worked for General Electric here in California during 1962 and 63. And then we know that there is a picture which appears to be a later dated picture because it is in color, and it is a picture of the Charlevoix, Michigan power plant or nuclear power plant. It's a billboard on the side of the road. It's wintertime. This, to me, was perceived to be a picture that was possibly taken during the OCCK cases, if you will, and or the visiting. We know that there was a visit to the John Benet Ramsey's home in Charlevoix, Michigan, which again is in the same area as this power plant, where a rope that appears to me, when I look at that style of rope, it looks like something that you would lasso a horse with. It is not just any standard, I'm going to tie down a load rope. It's very thick and very, very sturdy, kind of made out of that almost hemp type material. So that's an extremely interesting solve. He's complaining that he's temporarily blind. He needs an operation. He and Carter are both suffering, as you believe, from a radiation poisoning. And how Carter could live into 100 with radiation poisoning is just beyond me. I would have thought you would have died like long before then.
It looks like that's what they're thinking, that they're seeing other people dying around 50. They're both around 50. So it's interesting that this solve is coming out saying, well, if we both die, I want you to tell everything about Zodiac. Nixon,
and through Hearst. Through Hearst. Yeah. I mean, how is it they're going to call out Randolph Hearst this late in the game? But then we see nearly every single media outlet that he is writing to is to Hearst. And it's been my belief that Hearst has been facilitating these communications between mob, between politicians, between these killers and the likes throughout history, criminals, whatever that it is that the mob is doing, they're running personal ads. And it seems to be well accepted, even though I'm sure the FBI knows exactly how to look through these ads and determine who is there for legitimate reasons and who is not. Hey. Well, there is another communication from the FBI FOIA files in the Zodiac homicide case sent from San Francisco Police Department in San Francisco, California. It's regards a telephone conversation between, well, it's not going to tell us, San Francisco, and then it says SA, Quantico, Virginia. So enclosed for the Bureau is an inventory of enclosures and 31 enclosures pertaining to the Zodiac homicide case. Inspectors, I don't know who they are. Homicide Unit, San Francisco, might have been Tashi. I don't know. The name looks a little bit longer than Tashi, but two inspectors from the Homicide Unit in San Francisco Police Department furnished enclosed material to the FBI requesting that the Behavioral Science Unit in Quantico review it and attempt to develop a psychological profile of the Zodiac. Quantico is requested to return enclosed material and any resulting efforts to the police training unit of the San Francisco office. So again, June 19th of 1978, this original material is still collectively together, being sent to the FBI and then returned. Again, would not need to be returned if they were only submitted copies. So I'm taking for granted at this point that they were furnished the original documents in this case. That pretty much puts us down to our last few minutes. Is there anything that either of you would like to add in regards to that?
Well, so hopefully we'll be able to cover the ghost killer portion, because it just, again, it reiterates the same thing, and then it links to the ending of what's in the envelope. And this is all just anagramming and everything and identifying everything possible in there. So, and I thank you, Nanette, for asking me to do, because some of them are titled Bardo requests, and then the other ones are the ones I was working on already. So, thank you for requesting these. It's very interesting this week.
Well, then for next week, what I'll do is I will move it. I thought that the ghost writing letter or the ghost killer letter was 1981. I'm going to move it back to the end of what we just concluded here with these letters. We'll get that caught up so you can finish the 4-part segment on that letter. Everybody have a wonderful weekend and a great week, and we will see you next Friday. Take care.
Later.
Oh,